You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And is proudly brought to you by Star Assurance, your solid partner, Duraplus, where Duraplus goes, water flows. Ashesi University, educating ethical and entrepreneurial leaders for Africa. MTN everywhere you go. And Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. And we'd like to welcome on board the newest kid in the syndication of Newsfile. And Newsfile is now also live on Dreams FM in Bolgatanga. Dreams 101.9 FM. Is heard in the Upper East and Northeast regions. Thank you for joining Newsfile. Now, a couple of your comments, and then we move to see what is going to happen to the presidential aspirants who have been disqualified. I had announced earlier that we're going to speak to them. We wanted to find out what they are doing and whether or not some of them are going to challenge the process. We are unable to speak to them any more. Musa Abattoir in Kumasi says, what is happening in Nigeria is a threat to Western Africa. The sugar-coated words of ECOWAS leaders cannot solve the problem. The president of Ghana, Akufo-Addo, as ECOWAS chair, should step in to stop this nonsense. We have seen similar parallel security men under the guise of anti-robbery, during EC registration exercise, terrorizing innocent Ghanaians, but nothing has been done. Then this from Yakubu Ibn Chambers. Yakubu Ibn Chambers says that first of all, the government of Nigeria must realize that there is a problem and be candid with the citizens. SARS has outlived its usefulness and therefore must be altered in its detail or disbanded. Well, they've been disbanded. 69 lives lost is an illegality in the highest order and should not be seen justified by the Nigerian leader. The world is watching, Mr. Buhari. Okay. And then Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln actually says we should be thankful to God. Seriously. So he says, it is good, and don't intend to hurt your feelings. It is good this collapse happened at this time. And why do I say so? That the building was nearing its roofing. Because personally, I have seen this building for the past 17 years. That I have been using that road, and my justification for it happening is good is that on church service, the number of people who enter the building is huge. In particular, last Sunday, the last Sunday of the month. So if it had happened on such a day, we'll be counting hundreds of dead bodies. Abraham Lincoln in Koforidua sent in that one. Once we have your message, we'll also share it with the rest of the world. Thank you for joining us. Now, let's listen to some of these candidates. Okay, let's listen to some of these candidates before we, the aspirants disqualified, before we come to look at the issue.
We are quite surprised at the way things have gone, largely because we filed within the nomination period. The EC didn't come back to us to tell us whether they had any problems with our nominations, and we want to ask why. There was another week between that and when the EC came out with its final decisions. We are aware that some aspirants were called and told what the problems were with their forms.
This is a minor problem.
Yours was a fraudulent case. No, but in the case of some where they are calling fraudulent, where, for example, a candidate had gotten, endorsements from 2 other parties. You know, we are aware that the EC also called that candidate and had an engagement with that candidate. So why we were never called to have such engagements is beyond us, and that is a question we should all be asking.
So what's your suspicion, sir?
I have no suspicions. We are following due process. Ours is to engage the EC and find out for ourselves what the real issues are, because we deserve that at least.
I picked the intel that I am a threat to the president. So the president is trying any means for me not to file, for me not to contest.
Now, those are serious allegations.
I'm telling you, this morning I'm here and they are telling me about the people. They are my constituency executives. I have contacted them. They are denying what the EC is saying. So I'm taking the EC to court.
You are taking the EC to court?
Straight away, today you will hear from me. I'm taking the Electoral Commission to court. First of all, the Electoral Commission itself, the document, the register that they are using is what? It's not authentic. It's not certified.
There is nothing like any fake signature. All the people who endorse me has called me that EC has called them to authenticate whether they endorse me. So I am aware of everything, but so many media people told me before this release that they will disqualify me on grounds that Akufo-Addo and MPP doesn't want me to be part of this election.
They didn't engage us to even write to us to tell us that we've been disqualified until I heard my friend telling me you've been disqualified. You know, I mean, looking at her first statement, he said, I did not get enough people to endorse me in Greater Accra. And there were other regions that she stated that I had 4 different signatures. Right.
Yeah, respond to that specific allegation.
That is not forgery in the sense that during the voters registration program, everybody that went to the registration centers, it was somebody that was writing their names for them. It wasn't the person writing their names. It was an EC person that was writing the names of the citizenry. And most of the time, you know, that's exactly what we did on the road. We have 4 copies. We take the first sheet, we write it, and the person will sign. And the moment he signs or she signs, then we'll give her the other 4, the other 3 to sign. You know, there's nowhere in the world that you can sign 1 signature or 3 signatures and they will all be the same. Trust me, I can sign my signature 5 times and you will see that 1 will be different. So what the experts are saying that, oh, I would say the so-called experts are saying that it was forgery. Yes, they have to prove it.
All right, so Kofi Koranting, independent candidate, disqualified. Maverick Kofi Ghani, independent candidate, disqualified. Akwesi Adae Odike, United Progressive Party. You heard him. He said he was a target by the president because he could have beaten the president. So he was kicked out. Kwesi Busumru, People's Action Party. That's the end of the road for him. Nana Ejenim Boateng of the United Front Party. He also claims that he will beat the president hands down. So that is why he got disqualified. Right, so 5 of them, they're out. 12 of them will continue the race. Let's quickly look at those disqualified, and then we'll come to also examine the question of those on the ballots. How long is the ballot going to be? I don't know. Ben Efson joins us on the line. Thank you very much, Ben. Hello,
good
Ben.
Morning,
Great.
Good morning to your fellow panelists and your listeners and viewers.
Great. Okay. Did you expect that we'll get as many as 5 of the aspirants disqualified?
I'm not surprised, Samson. Every 4 years, there are contractors who get your forms and fill it in the various districts. That is why there were overlaps in some of the approval, some of the people who endorsed the forms. Like there was one in which 19 were CPP executives who had endorsed Green Street, and the same people had endorsed another candidate. So every 4 years, that's what happens. Because some of these independent candidates do have offices in the district, so people are contracted to fill their forms. I didn't think there would be 5, but I didn't think that we will have even 17. But I know that every 4 years, that's what happens. So I'm not too surprised as to the nature of the disqualification. The only thing is some of the disqualified ones are claiming that they were not informed to try and get remedies for the problem they were having.
Now, the bigger issue that has been raised is whether or not those who are saying they were not invited or they were not given an opportunity to make corrections should have been given that opportunity once the issues of fraud or crime was detected. The Electoral Commission said that these candidates who had been disqualified were further being referred to the police for prosecution on grounds of fraud. If you take, what's the name? Let me bring you a couple of the candidates and what the EC had to say about them. Now, the disqualified candidates, if you look, for example, at Mr. Kofi Koranting, they say that 19 persons who had allegedly supported his candidature were found to be CPP executives who had also supported the CPP candidates. Some of these persons were called to ascertain the veracity of their endorsement. All the persons called denied having endorsed the candidate. The candidate admitted the offense when confronted. That's how the EC is alleging. The candidate has been disqualified and will be reported to police for further action. That is Kofi Koranting, 19 of the endorsers. And you talk about contractors who are always ready to do this. Then, if you check Ivor Green Street's documents, we are told that same 19 of the candidate supporters were also on the nomination form of Mr. Kofi Koranting, an independent candidate, as supporters. The candidate officially wrote to the commission about the issue and presented his party's executive photo album to confirm that the said supporters are CPP executive. Candidate is therefore responsive to the nomination requirement. He was cleared, and of course, he's now on the ballot. Then you look at Mr. Maverick Kofi Ghani. The committee suspected the possibility of fraudulent signatures of some supporters. The handwritings and signatures of different supporters followed the same identical pattern. It was referred to the CID, and the CID confirmed the signatures were forged. So the candidate has been disqualified, will be reported to police for further action. Mr. Kwesi Bosomru, that's of the party known as RAP, signatures for same persons on the 4 forms are different. Ashanti, North and Northeast region. Signatures for same persons on the 4 forms are different. How does that happen? You heard him justifying that if he signed his signature for you, about 4 of them, you see one that will be different. So the CID confirmed that the signatures were forged. He was disqualified and is being referred to the police. And the final one, the EC says, that is Nana Ajenim Boating, whom we are learning may have proceeded to the court and is seeking an injunction against the election process. 3 of the persons who allegedly supported his nomination, and they give their names, have denied endorsing his nomination. The commission referred the matter to CID for further investigation, and CID confirmed that the signatures were forged. So he was disqualified and being referred to police for further action. What does this tell you about the ongoing process?
Yeah, something, you know, like if in future, 5 years down the line, you want to be a presidential candidate, I can get you one of the contractors who will go around and get you the signatures and bring it to you. The person can decide that he knows these people will do it. I'm sure this is the first time I believe that the EC has been very rigorous in terms of trying to check, because I'm sure there are softwares for confirming signatures vis-a-vis the original on the voter ID card. So the presidential, those who have been disqualified cannot put their hands to their chest and say that they took the forms round. So the contractors had done a shoddy job on them, but once you have signed the form and submitted it to the EC, I believe that's why they are paying the price for it.
Is it possible that some of them were suffering a sabotage? If you have 19 who belong to the CPP endorsing Kofi Koranting and the same number endorsing Ivor Greenstreet, does that suggest that a possibility of sabotage? Who did they endorse for first? Who filed first? Does that matter? Those who endorsed Nana Ejenim Boateng, 3 of them, he suffered because of only 3 of them. 3 of them were called, and then they denied that they signed for him. The CID also, investigation suggests those signatures were forged. Could it be sabotage?
No, Samson, is those concerns for the CPP people. I believe they had endorsed Greenstreet, and the contractor who was doing the work for that candidate knew that these are executives, they are his friends. What I'm saying, I don't think that I've been following elections for some time. I don't remember that there had been verification of certificates, signatures, and so on. So they usually do it so he knows these are people they sign, then they will sign for, because that is the reason why they've been cut out. Because normally they will check if you are registered, and you see that in some of the signatures, those people are not even registered voters. And I'm sure come 2024, people will be a bit more careful if they give you a contractor or they will give some, because there are people who do all these things, like Kofi Ghana has been outside most of the time, doesn't got for the independent candidates, they haven't got the structures, they haven't got office holders to be able to sign for them. So this is a consequence of you signing that you think these things are true, and there's the check, and these are the price. I'm sure maybe if they go to court, I'll be sure one of the legs that they may stand on is that, well, others were given the chance to verify their status in terms of those who signed. But I think that it brings sanity, you know, because you must be, if you're an independent candidate, you must be able to have people who work for you once you are paying them to verify the signatures. Most of them, you'll pick their name, they know there are people who are professional endorsers, you know, so they know this person will do it and they will forge the signature. Those who were called, I'm sure the police will tell them that your name is here, and the contractor may have known these people and may have forged their signatures.
Right. So you state again that your position is that the law, the EC's law, allows for alterations or amendments to the form, and the law requires that they should offer them opportunity, as the High Court and the Supreme Court in the Indum case also emphasized, should be offered opportunity for correction. You are saying the correction should only go to the anomalies, as in clerical and administrative errors, and not to questions of crime. You join that view?
Yes, I do, Samson. I agree wholly, because correcting it is like the 19 will be incorrect. How did they get on the form? But when you pick a name or somebody and you forge, I don't think that the Supreme Court held that crime in terms of elections, crime should be overlooked. Because forgery, I believe, is a crime.
That's right. Forgery can actually get you 10 years and could also get you up to 3 years in jail. Now, the nomination is invalid because of non-compliance with the subscriber and subscription requirements. The same happened in 2016, and the EC told us that these people will be referred to the police. Looking at what we know didn't happen, what are your expectations this time?
Well, I think that when they are referred to the police, they will be cautioned, and this will be a lesson that if you decide to seek the highest position in the land, the processes that you go through must be scrutinized by you. You are responsible for illegalities on your form, and I'm sure that when they are cautioned, maybe they write their statement, because I don't think they will own up that, because some of them who are out of the country, they don't have those linkages to know those people. I don't think they will own that ABC did it. But at least it will sanitize the processes moving forward. Something.
Yeah, so since the last time, similar detections were made and were promised that to go to the police. And as we know, nobody was reported to the police for anything. What are your expectations this time? Will this EC report these people to the police for any action?
Well, I believe that the EC should forward their names. I'm sure the police will invite them. Maybe they will caution them or put them on bond or something. Definitely, the police must speak to them and give them caution. You know, once that is, I'm sure 2016 they had done that. I believe that 2020 the people would have been more diligent and they would have been more careful. So at least moving forward, once they write their statement and what happened, it may be cautioned because this is a novelty and so on. So that 2024, when prescription is done, and I'm sure people will be more careful, you want the highest position in the country, you must look at your back well. Okay.
So you stay on there. We'll return to you and ask the question about the proliferation of these people say mushroom parties, and some have been very blunt that these are some unserious people we have on the ballot. They're going to waste everybody's time, and they are making the nation spend money to print long ballots for no good reason. Some of them are just attention seekers when they know themselves that they will not amount to anything on the ballot. What should be done about that? There are some who actually suggest that if the EC were to stick to strict enforcement of the political parties law, even the NDC and the MPP will also not qualify to be political parties and to get on the ballot. So, Kweku, what is going on? What do you say? Some of the lawyers will say that the EC has a duty not to help a candidate against the Republic. The EC must help the Republic rather against the candidate, or the EC will equally be guilty of the crime known as misprision of crime or concealment or abatement if it allows a candidate opportunity, an aspirant opportunity to effect corrections on questions of fraud or crime.
In principle, I'm with those who are suggesting that if the omissions border on crime or criminality, you don't have to be given a chance to correct those omissions. And there are precedents. Under the Charlotte Osei-led EC, they gave them 2 days to correct obvious errors and omissions. Those that had problems bordering on criminality, they were not given the chance. And indeed, their cases were referred to the police and the Attorney General. But as you have indicated, we are not sure what happened. Whether the issues were really referred to the police and whether the police became seized with it and did any action. I'm not too sure. I haven't double-checked on those areas.
What we are sure is that nothing happened.
Exactly, you know, exactly. So the precedents and the principle relative to forgery criminality, I'm on the side of the EC. But
for most of them, that's their complaint. They say you didn't invite us, you should have invited us.
As you read my mind, that's what I was coming to. That the same thing happened within the Charlotte Osei period.
Right.
That some say, look, we hadn't been called, we hadn't been given enough time, we hadn't even been called at all. Some went to court, as is happening today. Ejene Mboatin, as you indicated, he's gone to court. I've seen the court documentation, which I have copies here. And Indum's won his case at the High Court, if I believe
yes,
so.
he won at the High Court, and then the Electoral Commission appealed at the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And the Supreme Court used that opportunity to open the floodgates for everybody who had been disqualified.
Rule of law. So those who are agitated and who think they've been unfairly treated, there's an avenue. The only thing, catch, and you are a lawyer, you may have to explain, is that the balloting has already been done, unless the court orders a re-balloting.
Right.
I'm not sure. You can give me a legal education on that. And numbers have been pegged, positions on the ballot fixed. In the Indum era, they hadn't gone that far.
Right.
No, so there was some room for adjustment.
In the legal process, nothing stops what the court has to do. There's no law that says if wrong has been done, because somebody has gone ahead already, there's no opportunity. So once the court is seized with the case, the court is empowered and is capable of, you know, stopping everything that has gone on and asking everything to be done all over again if the candidate who has gone to court is found, you know, justified.
Well, strict law, but sometimes you look within the environment. Is there enough time for that mischief to be cured, considering all the constraints we've gone through with this registration and compilation, exhibition? We hardly have time. This is a very peculiar year and a peculiar registration, exhibition, and indeed election season. Very peculiar. So I'm not sure if the judiciary will be insensitive to that environment, but this is a speculative.
Indum won his case on the 28th of October 2016, and then the Supreme Court processes stopped further process by the Electoral Commission, and the Supreme Court also finished its decision on the 7th of November 2016.
Fast track.
And gave 1 day window, after which they did the balloting.
They hadn't, but they still hadn't done the balloting.
That's right.
Then, But you see, let's look at some of the specifics. And Ben is right. He used the word contractor.
Yeah.
It's a subculture, and he's damn right. I have this letter. This is a letter from one of the disqualified candidates, Kofi Kranti.
Okay.
If you don't mind, just to illustrate the point Ben was making. This letter is dated 22nd October 2020, addressed to the Electoral Commission chairperson. And it makes the point that I, Kofi Kranti, meet all the requirements to fulfill the role of President of Ghana, yet I have been disqualified from the ballot due to a clerical error. As a presidential candidate covering the entire country, I, like others, must rely on the work of hired helps to secure, Ben used contractor.
Hired help.
Hired help to secure all the necessary signatures in each region. In every large-scale clerical operation, errors can happen, as the EC recently learned while compiling the new voters register. I love that. Then there's another portion, which is interesting. He says, I would like to reiterate that the Kofi Kranti campaign did not and would not perpetrate fraud. Rather, we were its victims by those who were paid to perform a job and did not do so. Obviously, the duplicate signatures were a concerted effort by the work of nefarious individuals in the Northwest region, which should not affect the democratic prospects of a nation.
That sounds like an admission.
Well, when they go to court, this thing will be subjected to critical scrutiny, the legal test.
Yeah, that sounds like you are admitting, but you say, don't blame me.
How do you win a case like this? The last point. It says, I'm attaching the detailed series of events as recorded by the Kofi Kranten campaign for the period of October 8, 2020 through October 19, 2020. These events begin with a phone call from the EC to inform my campaign that there were problems with our paperwork and end abruptly without allowing us to submit the corrected, verified paperwork. You see, what is interesting is that apparently in his case, the CPP intervened because of the duplicates.
And the CPP brought the photo album of the people who signed for him, shown as members of the CPP.
Exactly. And there's an interesting letter from the CPP here that is dated 13th October 2020. And what I find interesting is this. It says, this fact, okay, let me read it. It's a short one. It has come to my attention, that's Ivor, the presidential candidate.
Right.
It has come to my attention that the details of some duly elected constituency and regional executives of the Convention People's Party from all the districts in the Western North region have fraudulently appeared on another presidential candidate's forms, Kofi Kranten. Please see a copy of the CPP Western North constituency and regional executives attached. The exercise to obtain these signatures on my forms were duly carried out by the CPP regional chairman of the party during the nomination compilation period. These facts were made available to the electoral officers at the Electoral Commission headquarters, at which meeting Mr. Kofi Kranten was present. He unreservedly accepted the facts as laid out and agreed to amend his nomination forms accordingly. That's why in his case, it appears there was an opportunity for him to be confronted.
Okay.
It was not to be given the opportunity to cure criminal insertions of a sort.
Okay.
You see, that explains
and
it.
this is important because Maverick Kofi Ghani is saying that once you give somebody else the opportunity, give me to an opportunity.
And to be honest with you, Thursday, I had no idea of this, how the sequence of events worked. And Randy Abe, Sami Jenfi raised it in a very strong way. Okay. And it appeared that, yes, relative to what they were saying, lack of equity, lack of fairness, lack of justice, it made sense. Subsequently, I double-checked. And then I realized that this was how things happened. So after his case, the EC took a firm decision that, look, if the thing is bordering on criminal, forgery, this, don't entertain them.
Right.
In terms of the principle, the law we are talking about here. No, so that's it. Now, the interesting point with Ajanim Boateng.
But Koku, this one, but for the fact that there may be evidence to show that he admitted and then sought to correct and then tendered a new list of endorsers.
Yes.
If he was the first to present his nomination form, the endorsers don't have to belong to any party.
Yes.
It doesn't matter that they belong to CPP and they have endorsed him. And it doesn't matter that CPP can prove that they are actually CPP members. If he can show that they actually endorsed him and they endorsed him first, he will be right. Yes, if they endorsed him first, they ought not have gone back to endorse.
Yeah, but it appears the CPP executives are denying endorsing him.
Okay.
That's a critical point. They are denying
doing
that exercise for him. And he appears to have admitted. That's why he went looking for new endorsers, so to say.
Okay, so that's also why the CID will be correct when they say the signatures were forged.
Forgery, yes.
Okay.
Yes. You see, but the most interesting thing is the Ajanim Boateng one. He's gone to court.
Yeah.
His court documents are here. And I found what is interesting is that those who endorsed him,
the three people,
have all now, what do you lawyers call, they've sworn an oath.
Yes.
Before a commissioner of oath, saying that they indeed endorsed him.
That's what they are saying.
Yeah, that's what they are saying.
They endorsed him, but they are revoking the endorsement.
They wrote James Akon.
Okay.
He wrote a letter to the EC saying that, look, I have not endorsed United. This is his argument. Can I read this thing?
Yes, please go ahead. Go ahead.
It says, after the press release, the EC press release, I contacted these three persons and they refuted respondents' allegation and confirmed endorsing my nomination. James Akon, one of the three individuals alleged to have denied my nomination, informed me that he was invited to the respondent's district office in Takoradi and questioned on whether he, James Paul Akon, endorsed the nomination of first applicant, United Front Party. Listen carefully. And he answered in the negative because he only endorsed the nomination of an individual, Nana Ajinim Boati, which is me. He further stated that he did not know at the time he denied endorsing first applicant that I was being sponsored by first applicant and running on his first applicant ticket, hence his denial. Do you get the distinction he's trying to draw? That he assumed he was endorsing a person, right, and not a party. But when he went to the EC office, the impression he got was that he was supposed to have endorsed a party. And he's actually an NDC. So. Yeah, he's an NDC member, though. And so his view is that no, I endorsed the person, not the party. At the time I wrote the letter, because he wrote a letter to the EC, denying, which is the basis on EC giving it to the police CID, and the police coming to the conclusion that this is another forgery. Right. So this is what is going on, and I don't know. The court will look into the merits of
it. If this is the case, then it's going to be interesting. For him.
Let's know that James Akon gave me a letter dated 13th October 2020 and informed me that a said letter was prepared by an officer of the respondent and handed over to him to sign at the office of the respondent. Attached here too as exhibit N is a copy of the said letter.
So he didn't write the letter denouncing that he has signed. It was the EC officer who wrote the letter for him to sign.
That's what he's claiming. That's what he's claiming. But the letter he wrote, which is dated 13, is this. Dear Sir, Madam, this is addressed to the chairperson. I am James Akon, a registered voter with voter number so and so and so in Wasa East District. Right. My attention has been drawn by the Electoral Commission to the fact that I have endorsed the form for the UFP presidential candidate. You see, candidate. So it's a person. I wish to place on record that I'm an executive member of the National Democratic Congress in Wasa East District, and I have not endorsed the nomination form for the UFP presidential candidate as it appears on your records. I wish to state that I have no idea on records on that nomination form, and wish to state that the voter registration particulars and the signature captured on the nomination form are without my knowledge. I hope you will take the necessary steps to expunge my particulars from the said nomination form. I count on your cooperation. Credibility crisis here. Credibility crisis here.
The other thing this thing brings up is that they referred this to the police, and the police confirmed that the signature was forged.
Yes.
But in the circumstance, the signature was not forged.
Well, but
he did it, but he's only saying.
Yes, so, but it means there is misrepresentation. It means, I'm not a lawyer, you may use a better word. It's like deceiving public officer. The totality.
No, but in that case, if the police confirms that the signature was forged, when indeed it was not forged, then that is problematic. And that might give this guy a chance.
No, but, well, if you reduce it to the signature, I think you may have a point there. But you see, the basis
of his forms not being compliant with the process is that a signature has been forged.
Is that the only thing the EC said? Read that portion. Let's see.
That's what it boils down to: forgery of a signature.
Yeah, but what about the communication that I have endorsed the person and I'm claiming I didn't endorse him? You see, in here, he said that he thought he was endorsing a party.
Because he's an NDC man.
Yes. But here, his own letter, the letter that he claims was written for him to sign, he's talking of the presidential candidate. So it comes back to the person.
He says he didn't write this letter.
But he signed it. And he's not a kid. He took ownership of this letter.
Well, because this is before the court, the court will examine it.
No, this, okay, yeah, it's before the court.
The court will examine it. And it also plays up one thing that I have personally observed. When you are appearing before officials of state to do things, you have to be candid with yourself and not be afraid. Like people get to a police station and they are scared. Anything that's written for them, they sign.
They want to sign. Yeah. And the last one
is
that
unfortunately, after you have signed, you are done.
And apparently the lawyers for Kofi Ghani,
yes,
quite a popular firm. Bram Labi.
Bram Labi, Bicham,
very credible, of course.
Former president of the Bar Association.
That's right.
Bicham's Ford.
That's right. Long-standing. He has a good reputation. They have written to the EC and issued an ultimatum, but that October 28th, Wednesday, the EC should respond to their demands. Otherwise, they will advise themselves.
Okay. It's always the best form that you don't hit the court first. You try to give them opportunity. If they will change their mind, if they don't, then you sue. So as it appears, 28th is gone.
Yeah.
So either they 28th? Have sued. No, sorry, 28th.
Yeah.
Oh, that's far away. Anyway, okay. So we take a break here. Return to hear from Kobe Mensah, Dr. Kobe Mensah, and also Dr. Usu Ansah. But Benefsin is still on the line, and we'll be looking at the implications of the numbers on the ballot and whether or not the EC should be doing something, because we understand there are some political parties that have only been on their websites, but that's all there is. They are never in existence. Only in election time we hear about them. What can be done? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, as you know, we always put Ghana first. And my guest, Kukubako, who is our regular panelist, Dr. Kobe Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School. Also, Dr. Digrafta Usu Ansah is on Zoom, and then Benefsin is also on Zoom with us. And thanks to Frank Anderson, who corrects me that it's Marek, not Maverick. I've been saying Maverick. And apparently, I just checked again, and the Electoral Commission spells his name as Maverick. So I was following the Electoral Commission's pronunciation or writing. Okay, so what do you have to say about this? Some of these candidates that have been disqualified, we clearly can see that they have promise, they seem to be poised, and they would have made some good, impact on the political scene. You take the two independent candidates, for example, and I'm being biased about that because I have encountered them, and I can tell that they qualify to be presidential candidates on NDC, MPP ticket, or whatsoever. Kofi Koranteng, Marik Ghani, they have a professional life you can attest to, that they are serious people.
Yeah. Okay, great. Now, thanks. I mean, obviously, the Constitution is clear. Once, you are a certain age, and then you have signed mine.
40.
Exactly. You can participate. You can actually, contest. So that's your first level of qualification. Then, of course, the other levels is whether people feel that you're responsible, etc. So clearly, and what their backgrounds suggest that yes, they could. But I think also it's about your attention to detail, because you want to lead the country. It's not a joke. It's a very big issue. So if you have committed that kind of resources, including your time, including your money, you want to be very, very circumspect in terms of the processes.
There's a lot of work. Article 63 of the Constitution says a person shall not be a candidate in a presidential election unless he is nominated for elections as president by a document which he will sign by himself and is signed by not less than 2 persons who are registered voters, residents in the area of authority of each district assembly. That's a lot.
Yeah, and I would even suggest that perhaps we should even go beyond the 2, because you see, our processes is not watertight as elsewhere. And so some of these mechanisms are the ones that we could use to actually have fit for purpose person. Because look, when it comes to investigating somebody's financial background, we don't have the sophistication to be able to know where you're getting the money from.
Should we increase the number?
I think so, because that's the only way.
Even with this number, we are hiring. We have what do you call them?
And that's the point.
Like Benefsin just called them
the contractors.
Contractors.
And that's the point, because if you're serious about leading a country, why do you even have to use contractor when the system doesn't actually say that you have to even look for party people who actually normally are normal voters, but can attest to the fact that perhaps you are genuine person.
But it's easy if you have a political organization to back you, like NDC, MPP,
of course,
the PPP, and the rest of them. But the Constitution allows for independent candidates. And independent candidates don't have offices in all regions and districts as is required.
It does, and that's where we should have that mechanism to make sure. Because
you're going to make it more difficult for them. You're going to kick out independent candidates.
I think that the first point of concern is whether we're having genuine people, not necessarily making it easier or difficult for people. It's the state first. How do we, go about making sure that we have genuine people? And if that means that we should have people who can really attest to people's, a character, then we have to do that. And even then, getting those two people, it shouldn't be people who can ordinarily meet in town and say, can you endorse me? In this country, people can do that. They will just give you money and they can endorse. But we should actually go beyond that to make sure that we can establish, some kind of relationship that people can actually attest to your quality before we actually do that.
Bail for people who have cases in court. There are contractors around the court area.
That's right. And I'm worried that they are even contractors. For Uncle Ben to actually say that, it means that it's even a common knowledge, for example. And that means, what is the EC doing to investigating and making sure that those people could also be brought to book? Because we're trying to sanitize our system. Now, when you have to conduct election with contractors, that itself actually brings some kind of issue, the credibility issue to the process. So how do we then, of course, perhaps we can consider as a hearsay, but then how do we then go further to investigate and making sure that we can actually take these people to...
So should the EC put these people up for prosecution?
I think so. I think the EC, I think the EC has responsibility to this country to send these issues to the courts for prosecution. 2, those who actually feel hard done by should also seek the redress, as they're actually saying, so that we can actually go into the election with a very clear-cut position. I think that both sides, if they feel they have an issue, owes it to this country, to better the system. So for me, but I would also ask the EC to perhaps make these information available. When you go to the EC website, because for citizens like for us to be able to be behind the EC, every information has to be public knowledge.
Right.
We should be able to know.
So let's get Dr. Usu-Ansah quickly on this, and then we come to an area that a lot of people actually, love to hear from you on about the 12 qualified candidate. Now, so Dr. Usu-Ansah, what do you also say? The EC actually is refunding their money to them, the 100,000. We know that it's actually not supposed to be refunded. Those who lost last year, 2016, they didn't get their money back. And some may say this will encourage, the wrong people to come in knowing that they will get their money back if they are disqualified.
Yes, Samson. I'm of the view that the EC shouldn't give the money back to them. In fact, I'm very surprised when it comes to Kofi, Gang, and Cranton. We've interacted with them a lot of on social media, and then the way they've been sharing ideas for us. So I'm particularly surprised. For Kofi, he takes details into a lot of things. I don't know why issues like this should come by. And I've been of the view that, as Doc said, that they have to increase the number of signatories, because if you really want to be a president of a developing country like Ghana, you should be able to do this, because the problems you are going to inherit is more than going around to get signatories of 2 individuals in each district. That's far more than that. So we should be able to put in the mechanism on the ground, the operations on the ground.
By that, you are giving them a difficult job, and you're also going to give the Electoral Commission a difficult job. From what we know, it doesn't appear that before Charlotte Osei, the EC was doing this scrutiny. It is Charlotte Osei's time that it appears they took time to go through all these bulky documents to expose the wrongs in them.
Yes, but the EC has the capacity to do that. The EC has the powers to establish committees to do that. The EC has all the resources to do this. What we intend to do that as a country like Ghana, where we want to develop, we want to be sure that the aspirants seeking the mandate to govern this country are serious enough. The case that Uncle Ben just put up, contractors having to do the signatories for these people. How come that in a country of 30 million people with approximately 17 million plus voters, you could have 2 or 3 people actually giving signature for one particular candidate in a particular district. I mean, you should be serious. All those candidates are supposed to get operations down the ground at the regional levels, at least, for them to be able to go around and seek for signatories in order to help them to fulfill their requirements. What I'm happy about is that the reasons the EC has given disqualifying them, none of them has to do with the voter register. All of them has to do with issues that are clear that they cannot fault the EC. They have to fault themselves of not being able to be on the ground to make sure that all these errors has been corrected. Okay. I'm also of the views that issues that are fraud nature, you should not be given the chance to correct those ones. No,
right,
not at all.
Yeah, and you say guys like Kofi Kranting and Marek Ghani, solid people, at least from where we know them from and their professional background. Do you support the case then that the Electoral Commission should actually forward the cases to the police to prosecute them? And remember that if that happens and they are found guilty, then it means that they cannot put themselves up in future to become, to want to contest to be president, because the Constitution says, apart from the 40-year qualification that you need to get, it also says that you must qualify to be an MP, and you are not qualified to be an MP if you have been convicted of fraud or dishonesty.
After some years,
yeah, I think it's 10 years. Yeah. Yes.
But what we do know is that for you to be a presidential candidate seeking the mandate to govern the people, at least you must address yourself with the laws. Okay. You must know what actually are the consequences of certain actions, so that when you become the president, you can govern this country well.
All right.
I'm expecting the EC to forward this particular fraud cases to the CID, and I'm expecting the CID to act on them. If it turns out that it is fraud, the law should take its course. You've always been preaching the law, the law, the law, the law. It should take its course. If those candidates are found guilty of that, and because of that, they will be unable to contest again, so be it, because they did not actually follow the law that they seek, in whom they are going to drive their powers from to govern the people. So there's nothing that we could do.
Okay. Now, Angben, I'm coming to Kobe after you. So from what is happening and likely to happen, if it does happen to these candidates, these aspirants, how else should the EC position itself, if you agree with that point, so that we don't have an unnecessarily long ballot? We have 12 candidates on the ballot.
Yes.
Uncle Ben Epson. Okay, we have lost Ben Epson. Dr. Osas, I can speak to that briefly.
The EC has responsibilities as to the operations of the political parties. So he has to make sure, the EC has to make sure that they actually hold the law to the letter, not that these political parties sprang out when it is the year of election. And I'm very sure that if the EC has gone by its own rules and its own responsibility, some of these political parties wouldn't have been there in the first place. Most of them, I heard about them when the EC was actually seeking the political party consensus on the register. I mean, they've been dead, but they come to life. They don't contribute to the discussion, the discourse of the society when after elections, but they all only resolve after, close to the election days. It is something the EC has to look at it, hold the law, make sure that we only get the political parties which are serious in nature to contest for election, whether presidential or parliamentary elections.
Okay. Ben Epson is back. Ben, should the Electoral Commission insist on the political parties act and the various provisions that include that to be a party, to qualify, to be taking part in these processes, we must ensure that you have branches in all the regions. You must meet these conditions, branches in all the regions, presence in 2/3 of districts in each region, at least a founding member in each district, and then the responsibilities about giving audits, accounts of your account, sources of funds, dues paid, contribution, donations, assets and audited account, etc., which we know they have been breaching. Should the EC enforce this as a way of weeding out, quote unquote, unserious political parties and persons within the participating in the process?
I'm sorry, I'm being blunt, but that's why you invited me to speak, not as a diplomat. I will give Joy a very good process story to do. Now, they should go around most of the political parties, I'll mention names, take a shot of their offices, their vehicles, and in a year's time, go back there. What most of the smaller parties do is they go around the district, go and hire shops of tailors, small-time provision sellers, hide it for a year and a half, paint it in their colors to satisfy the EC requirement. If the EC decides every year to inspect, most of them cannot survive it. They do so a year and a half, 2 years to elections and paint it. The thing is that some of the political parties are accusing me of not being fair to them by saying that their total votes will not be more than 4%. The truth is that if you go to those offices in a year's time, you will see tailors, seamstresses, and provision sellers back in their shops. The truth is that the EC must do it every year. They must go to the offices and check. They do it a year and a half to listen. That's why we have this issue. And the second truth is that it is these big parties, NDC and MPP, which fund them. So that when they go to IPAC, quite often it's rare to see MPP and NDC agree at any given time on IPAC. These two big parties fund them. So when they go to IPAC and there is a vote, their surrogate parties vote for them. That is the bottom line. So the two parties are complicit. Because if you're a political presidential candidate and you don't get even 15,000 votes nationwide, Samson, hello.
Okay, thank you, Ben Efsin and Dr. Emmanuel DeGraff Johnson Owusu-Ansah. Thank you very much. We will terminate our discussion with you at this point. So, Dr. Emmanuel DeGraff Johnson Owusu-Ansah, Department of Statistics and Actuarial Science of the KNUST, and Ben Efsin, Managing Editor of the Daily Dispatch newspaper, and this country's only known, if you like, certified pollster of many years standing. Thank you all very much. We'll take a last break, and when we return, the focus is on Dr. Kobi Mensah, Senior Lecturer and on Political Marketing Expert at the University of Ghana Business School. The 12 candidates. How do we look at the permutations? They are saying all sorts of things. How do you communicate them? We'll be right back. Right, you're welcome back to Newsfile, and apologies, and those of you who are sending in protest messages about the adverts having increased, forgive us. Now, Kuku says he donates the rest of the time to Dr. Kobi Mensah to take us through the analysis of the 12, candidates on the ballot and how things will pan out. Is there any magic with it? Is there any science about where you belong and how that affects your place?
Excellent. All right, thank you so much, and thank you, Senior, for that honest. Firstly, for us in political marketing, we believe that when elections become very competitive, every move matters within the process. So you realize that from 2000 onwards, our political system became very, very competitive. And so remember that from 1992, 1996, perhaps we didn't hear a lot about positions. But in 2000, we all are aware of the popular Asieho, kind of position. And I remember when I had a conversation with Jacob Echebilamte during my thesis, and that's what my thesis looked at in the political marketing. He said that when the ballot position came and they were at the bottom, they felt that there could be an issue, especially looking at the different voter demographics that we have. Obviously, the voters are in different categories. So they realized that they have to be creative in making sure that they can direct the voters who may not be as literate as possible, and who probably could have some challenges as well, because of maybe some elderly voters, could have eyesight issues, and therefore they had to have a creative way of directing them to where, President Kufuor was. And so they created the Asieho, And remember, at the time, too, Asieho had become a song by, I think, Lumba had created Asieho. So there was already an existing narrative, of Asieho. And so positioning the candidate, linking the candidate position to that narrative was easy for people to perform that act. So once they say Asieho, they do the opposite sign of, the thumbs up. And it quickly actually fitted in. So although we always say that, when it comes to electoral choice, I mean, there are so many reasons why people choose, and so many reasons why parties win. But you're looking at how creative are you with each part of the campaign, in order that actually you can actually gain some benefits from that. So that Asieho was used as a so-called a directional sign, some kind of education to a certain voter groups to make it easy for them to actually choose. Now, when you look into our trends, and I've been analyzing our electoral trends now, apart from the two parties, MPP and NDC, whenever the lesser endowed parties have actually occupied the top position, guess what? They have made gains. And that actually suggests that the theory really works. So we looked at one, CPP, PNC, and GCPP. Whenever each of these parties had occupied, of course, they had occupied with different candidates, so the candidate power comes in. But whenever they had occupied at the top of the ballot, that is between 1 and 2, they have made gains. And I was telling Samson that if you look at the position of NDC, MPP, that's a given. But the third position had always been occupied by Indum, whether he was on CPP ticket or he was on PPP ticket. So that tells you about the candidate brand strength. So we have the party brand strength, the candidate brand strength, and then of course we call the policy brand strength, and then the rest of it, factor that actually contribute. So given that the NDC and MPP, whoever becomes candidate, actually first and second each time, Indum had consistently maintained third, which means his brand is huge. Now we're yet to see whether the current PPP candidate can occupy the third position that Indum occupied. Then that can actually lend some credence to the brand strength of the party itself.
People really feel that it is the PPP that will give the third force that is being sought after.
Correct, that's the perception. But of course, we should know that apart from the party brand strength, the candidate brand strength currently is the strongest. And evidence suggests that, some of the studies that we've done suggest that now the candidates are very stronger than the political parties. And that is actually global strength, global literature. So when we realized that PNC, CPP, and GCPP, whenever they had occupied the top, they had become fourth to Indum. That is Indum third consistently, then NDC, MPP. Now, in the literature, it says that, I mean, studies conducted by Darcy, Upton and Co. actually shows that when elections or ballot paper position have actually been arranged in such a way there is no party image or there is no party information, the candidates that are at the top with, let's say, A, B, C, D in that order, those at the top gain, they gain an advantage. Now, in Australia, for example, where the voting is actually compulsory, people who do not have interest in voting means that they may not have interest in even what is going on in campaign. So when they go to the ballot, they actually tamper, which means that in Ghana, if there are people who really don't bother about the election, their choice will be at the top. So we say that the ballot paper position has two effects, campaign effect and electoral effect. But usually the electoral effect does not count if the campaign effect is not there, i.e. you do not actually make enough during the campaign. So we're saying that political parties use the position to educate.
Okay.
So now they have to move on to use the position to educate people
okay.
how to vote.
I'm very sorry, unfortunate. And the way he started it and how he's going, I could listen on and on and on forever. Yeah. Dr. Kobe Mensah, Senior Lecturer in Political Science, Political Marketing Expert, University of Ghana Business School. Thank you so very much for making the time to come here. And Abdul Malik Kubako, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper and a regular panelist. Thank you all so very much. Have a good afternoon. This has been Newsfile. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanin.